Well, hello and welcome to a new episode of Mark My Words. Today, I am talking to somebody who has been incredibly gracious and patient, and we're in two completely different time zones, and it is taking a lot of effort on both of our ends just to be here today on a Saturday doing two episodes of this podcast. And the second one of the day just happens to be HannahMaria Shanahan, who is owner and creative director of HannahMaria Shanahan, her fashion line. And I cannot wait to talk a little fashion and a little entrepreneurship with Hannah today. Hannah, welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited. It's my first podcast. Yeah, everything's great. The weather in London has finally cleared up, and we had amazing weather today, which is great because I think we had like 8 months of rain. I'm not joking. It's been raining for a very long time here.
Well, it looks like the rain has been passed on to us here on the East Coast in America because it rained yesterday. I barely got out to play a little golf, and now today it's just raining consistently, and I think it's going to rain tomorrow. So it looks like the rain has been passed on to us.
No
And
way. Yeah. No, here it's amazing.
well, we had our amazing days earlier in the week, so I guess we're getting whatever you guys got. So you told me that you were actually, I don't know if you were playing in the football match or if you were just
Yeah,
attending.
no, I was actually I had a football match. So we have a sport in Ireland. It's called Gaelic Football. It's a mixture between Australian football, volleyball, and basketball. It's like a combination of like those three sports. And there's some clubs in London. There's about 5 or 6 clubs in London, and we have tournaments. So I had a match today, and yeah, it was I love football. I love getting out and like meeting people and great exercise, and it's just a community here in London, for the Irish. So it's so nice to have it.
That's amazing. And
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
great to see people getting out and doing stuff again.
So it's amazing. It's just like it's so nice. I think it's like the club's history to have the most new people join. I think last year they had 30 players. This year they have nearly 60. So they have like 25 between 25 and 30 new players.
Wow.
And they're saying it's because of like COVID, because people just want to get out and just to join communities and like just get out and do some sports and for their mental health and physical health and everything, because the past year and a half has been absolutely excruciating for us. I think in Ireland has been worse than the UK. In Ireland, like currently they're still in lockdown. We're out of lockdown since May 17th, and Ireland are coming out of it, I think, in June 20th. I think it's June 7. I think it's next week. Actually, they're coming out of it, but it's been a long haul for everybody. Too long. It's been like just not normal, and because we're social beings, so we like to go to the pub, have a pint, and to catch up with our friends and family. And, it's just wasn't normal. It was very hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, yesterday was the first time that I've gone to a place called Top Golf in almost 2 years, like a year and a half, and
Yeah.
just it felt so good just to be out a little bit and to be amongst people and to
Yeah.
just be doing something I like to do, like an outside activity, which leads us to this inside
Yeah.
indoor activity, which is this podcast. And I really appreciate you being on here today. I know you got a pretty busy schedule here. And today we're going to talk just a little bit about your career path and
Yeah.
really excited to hear the story of how you transition into having your own fashion line. And I think that's a really interesting line of work to take on for yourself. And I really just, I think, want to get started with just going back to maybe when you started in college. So you went to college for hotel management. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that is something that you had a passion for growing up, or if that's just something that struck you as being interesting. How did you decide to go to school for that?
Yeah, so absolutely. So my aunt, Rose Shanahan, my dad's sister, so she bought her first pub at the age of 26 years old. And from a very, very, very young age, since like I was, I think about 6 or 7, we used to stay over in her house in Bandon in West Cork, and we would, collect glasses, brush the floor for her, like, be in the kitchen, like, doing dishes and seeing how she runs a business like a bar. And I can remember putting my first pint when I was like 8 years old, just helping out. And like, the customers loved us, and we were always talking to the customers, and we would always see her with her customers. And she's amazing, like a businesswoman. And she bought like a nightclub, and she was always in the hospitality aspect of the industry. And I suppose she was like my first role model, like my first person that I saw, that I wanted to illuminate, that I wanted to be like. She was successful, she was young, she was outgoing, she was great with clientele and customers, and that's exactly what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like her. And when you're young, in West Cork, like you always, for the summers or for the weekends, you get jobs in hotels and bars and clubs and stuff. So I got a job with her, like in her nightclub, and I liked it. And I also worked in hotels when I was younger, our local hotels like the Marine Hotel, the Rectory, and it was amazing. Like it was great. But then so as a career path to choose hospitality, it was like a no-brainer. Like I was like, okay, like this is what like I want to do. I've worked in it since I was a kid. My aunt has been successful in it. I've seen like how much passion she had, and like it inspired me. But like when you're a teenager between 15 and 16, um, they don't tell you, like the schools don't tell you to choose a career path until like you're about 17. And then okay, fine, so that's 1 year before you do the leaving cert. So they're like, okay, so choose the for the rest of your life, choose what you want to do. And there's so much pressure and such a short period of time, and you're so young, you're a kid, to choose what you want to do for the rest of your life. So what I knew from a young age was hospitality, and that's what like I chose. I was like, okay, this is what I can do, and this is all I knew. But to do it for my rest of your life, like my life, like that is something like I didn't actually think about like doing. And I come from like West Cork, like the country. I grew up on a farm. My dad's a farmer. My mom's in healthcare, like she's a nurse. Like there was no creative people around me. When I was 11 years old, I started like collecting, fashion magazines, and I started, tearing out the covers, and decorating my whole bedroom with like all the looks and the perfume. I used to collect perfume bottles, and I just loved fashion, but I didn't know that you could actually work in fashion for as like, your full occupation. So at the age of 18, I left home. I went to study hotel management in Shannon in County Clare. And it's one of like the most prestigious colleges in the world for hospitality. And I got in there. You had to do an interview, and you had to get certain points to get in there. So I got accepted, and my first year was in Shannon, and in my second year I went to Germany. And that's when I started doing interrailing around Europe. I started traveling a lot. I think I went to about 15 countries in 1 year, like interrailing on trains and like meeting different people and creatives. And I met like artists and other fashion designers, and we have conversations with them. And I was like, oh, like how did you start? Like how did you begin your career? And after Germany, I came back to Ireland and I finished up my course. And I did my last 9 months, or my last year in America, in Georgia. And my director of F&B, I can remember having a conversation with him. He's like, Hannah, you're really good at what you do and like at work, but I can see that you're not happy. It's like work shouldn't be like you shouldn't be at work and not be happy or like just force yourself there. It's like a heavy weight on me. It was like the heaviest weight of my life like on me when I would go to work. I knew what I was doing. I was good at what I was doing, but I did not like being there. So he said to me, he was more of my like a guidance, like a tutor. And he said to me, take a year out, like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I love fashion. He's like, why don't you do it? I was like, I don't know if I can, have a job in the fashion industry. He's like, why not? And that was like the first conversation I ever had with anyone in my life. I'm saying that, yes, you can actually work in the fashion industry. So he told me to take a year out and to get internships in the fashion industry. So I took a year out. I went to New York and I got an internship at Flying Solo in Broadway, New York. And it's basically one of the biggest independent stores in, I think, actually America for independent designers. So when I first got my internship there was only 30 designers. And when I left in that year, there were 65 independent designers. And what I learned from that year alone was like, my God, like I can actually do this. So I went from New York straight back to Dublin and I did a course at Griffith College in DIT, Dublin Institute of Technology, to teach myself how to market a business. Okay, I have a plan. Now I need to know how to, set up a business, how to market it and like what I should be doing. And I did 2 courses in Dublin for 9 months. And then from there, I went straight to London. I did 4 or 5 more internships in the fashion industry. And I just started at the ground up. I kept learning and learning and learning, like how they do the prototypes, how they, where they source the materials, how they market it, like, the social media impact, how to, I taught myself how to build a website, how to do SEO, search engine optimization. I just learned as much as I could for like literally 5 years straight, just learning and learning and learning and learning. And I saved every single penny I had. And I think I was working about, say 80 to 100 hours a week between internships and full-time jobs and cafes and working in bars and everything to pay my rent and to keep it going. And I work on my business plan on the side and I kept working and working and working. It wasn't even like 4 or 5 days a week, it was 7 days. And I kept going and going and going. And until the pandemic happened, that's when for the first time in my life I couldn't travel. I was in one space, like I was in one space. I couldn't, I think I lived in about 18 houses in within 5 years. So I had no choice but to stay in one spot. And that just gave me time and patience to set just the brand just took off from there. Like it was nearly done by the pandemic hit and I just launched it in January 2021, like literally about 4 months ago, 5 months ago, yeah.
Wow, that I
Yeah.
feel like I just went on that journey with you.
Yeah.
Is that is one little journey going
Yeah.
all over the world like that.
Yeah.
So, did you along the way have a mentor or mentors that really helped you
Yeah.
along?
Basically, no. Okay, to answer your question, no. The only person that gave me advice was my F&B director because he saw how unhappy I was in the workplace. Like you can't when you're in the workplace, you can't hide your unhappiness there. Like sometimes you just literally can't hide it. He kind of saw my frustration. He was the only person that gave me advice to go and pursue my passion. That was it. But he wasn't my mentor for the past 5, 6 years. I was my own mentor and I had to train my brain and my mentality and have that self-belief that yes, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Like I was my own mentor for the past 5, 6 years by myself.
So, do you feel that with all the traveling that you did, all the people you met, all the places you've been, has networking really factored in, or it almost sounds to me like you just went all over the world, sponged up as much as you could,
Yeah.
and build up your business.
Absolutely. Networking, no, I never networked, to be honest. Do you know, when I was young, I think I was about 21, there was a family friend that we asked. Well, basically, when I was 21, for our last year of Shannon College Hotel Management, we had to get our own internships, and there was people in my year that they were getting internships, from their friends, from their family members. They had connections, and I had a connection through my family too. And I gave my CV to them, and I never heard back from them ever again. And from that day on, I said to myself, you know you got to do this by yourself. Like, you can't sit and wait for someone to help you. Like, you're the only person that can make things happen at the end of the day. And I, to this day, like, I have done everything myself. I went to New York with my suitcase, with no accommodation, no job, no internship. I was in an Airbnb in Brooklyn, in I think it's is it Kirkland? It's like the last stop on the J train. It's literally way out past Williamsburg, past Myrtle Avenue. I was like by myself, and I landed on like an Airbnb for 1 week. In the first 3 days when I was in New York, I got my accommodation for the full year. And when I think it was on my second week, I got my full time job in Hurley's Bar on Broadway on 8 and in 8th Avenue. And I got my internship on the same week. So for my internship during the morning from 9 a.m., or I think it was like from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., I did my internship from 4 p.m. to about 12 at night. I worked in the Irish bar, and I did this maybe 6, 7 days a week. And I just sponged, as you said, sponge as much information and as I could. But to be honest, I had no mentors, I had no help, I had no one, and I did everything myself.
So is that like a common thing in the fashion industry when you're trying to start up on your own? Because
I
that,
don't think so.
yeah, it says a
Yeah,
whole lot about you that
yeah.
you said, you know what, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna go to all these places and learn what I need to do. And when the time is right, I'm gonna just go do it.
I don't think this is, or to be honest, I never heard of people doing it this way. They usually have help, from family members, from friends, from connections, from work colleagues, from partners, that they do collaborations with. I don't think it's normal, and I'm telling you right now, it was probably extremely hard. I've suffered from burnout more than one time in my life. My house in Countess in West Cork was more of a resting spot. I go into my room and my mom wouldn't see me for a week, and I pack my bags and I leave again. So it's like literally I stop in, go to my bedroom, stay there for a few days, and then leave again. It was extremely difficult, but there was no one there for that could help me. Like, I was the only one that could do things, and um, I'm just that's just me as a person. I think I just go out and make things happen. I don't care what people think of me, or like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you should not think about what people think of you. It just is just don't become an entrepreneur if you care, if you really care what people think of you. I came from a tiny little village in West Cork, and I just took off and I just went with it. I had my blinders on. I think there's like two types of race horses. There's the ones with the blinkers at the side, and they can't look at the people, like the horse next to the left, right, because if they look, they're gonna trip and fall. And then there's a second type of horse that they need to see the horse next to them to kind of motivate them to kind of run faster. I'm the one with the blinkers. I put my blinkers on and I just went for it.
Well, I've been doing this show for a little while now, and the one thing that I've learned is that there's all different kinds of ways to make your way as an individual entity. And some people just, accidentally fall into whatever they're doing. Some people have a passion. Some people collaborate with others and network their way into it.
Mhm.
And the advice that I always feel like I hear and, and have been given is to have a mentor, have somebody. Like, you can't do X, Y, and Z if you don't
Yeah.
have a mentor or you don't have people supporting you, which is great to have support. And, you never know how things are going to work out in life. But I think some of us, especially those who are entrepreneurs, they have like a different gear or a different mindset, and you're clearly showing that with your story, where you just have this fire inside of you that's like, you know what, this is my passion, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. If I get help along the way or a mentor along the way, that's great. Because I know personally through my life, I, while I've met people that have influenced me and have impacted my life, I don't know if I can say this person or that person was a mentor who, showed me the ropes, gave me the wisdom. And I feel like those stories aren't told enough. So I think there's a lot to be said for what you've done. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, like it's yeah, to be honest, like I think um yeah, it was extremely difficult. And I can remember, coming home, and I don't think my family knew exactly like what I was doing. I had a plan, I had my vision, I had my agenda, and I had my 5-year goal to have my business by the time I was 28, 29. And because I know after that age, like it does get difficult to find the time and to take the financial risk, because if you have a house or if you have a family or anything, like there's like when in your 20s should be the time to make all of these crazy decisions and like crazy risks. And I knew I had a time frame to achieve this, and I just put my blinkers in. I worked so hard, I know, like 80 to 100 hours a week, and different countries, and I just like wanted to learn and learn and learn more and more, and started from the bottom of each company, and just like see how they run it, and like what I liked and what I didn't like, and just kind of I applied everything to my company. I this is how I want to run it, this is like my ethos, this is what I want it to be like. And it was really hard, like not having any advice or any mentor or any support, nothing. And I don't think my family knew what I was doing, but I did. But it's really hard to have the ones you love to understand a vision that they can't see. They could not see my vision. I could, and you're the only one. And that's where it's really frustrating, because you can't communicate your vision to them because they can't see it. I saw it, but they couldn't, you know?
And sometimes it's hard to, especially with people closest to you, to say, hey, this is my vision, this is what I'm doing. Because I think we're all so used to going to college, getting a job, going out, working a 9 to 5 job, having a mortgage, and just that kind of routine. Whereas there's some people that are just molded differently and meant to be their own entity and their own vision. And
Mm.
it's something that I started to learn a few years ago when I left my corporate job of 10 years. They were going through restructuring, and I decided to take their offer for a buyout, and I left. And I wound up not taking the path that I thought I was going to take, which was just get another managerial job in my field. I actually wound up just contracting in my field, which has been great. It's been an interesting experience, but it, hasn't really been quite as fulfilling as what I was doing. So that's when I started digging into the entrepreneurial world, I started up a blog, and it kind of like led to me making video content. People encouraged me to create a podcast, and here I am. And it really doing all of that, just saying, you know what, I've always wanted to be a speaker and talk about my journey and my life, and to write and just do all these things just for myself, not for X, Y, and Z corporation. And then to meet people like you, it really opened up my eyes. And that's been the whole core basis of why I'm doing this podcast, is because I wanted to open up people's eyes to the fact that you don't have to work at a 9 to 5 job. And some of us, whether we know it or not, and I feel like based on who I've talked to, they often don't find out until they're actually doing it that, hey, I'm not meant to have a boss or a CEO or whatever. I'm meant to be the boss. I'm meant to be the CEO and the vision. And I feel like a lot of people don't learn that until they go out into the world and do, or have the kind of path that maybe I've had or you've had. And it's just amazing.
Yeah, like I don't know how the schooling works in America, if it's the same, concept as in Ireland. But growing up, we had, our um, subjects were, geography, history, maths, English, Irish, art. But there's no subject on why we are here. Like, what is our significance? Why are we here? And, it would just really help us to navigate life much better if the schooling taught us we're here, for a reason, that we have a gift in us that can really help us navigate life better. Either you're an amazing cook, that you're really good with, computers, you're really good at music, you're gifted at, construction, you're gifted at, something like there. We, each one of us has that spark, has that gift that navigates us through life. We're not taught that from a young age, and we should be taught that we have something in us that can carry us through life, that does not feel like work, and that is something unique to us that we can, do every day to, pay our bills, like, in the workforce. And that's what happened. I think what a lot of people, they hit the wall. It causes depression, it causes anxiety. It's really, it's a heartbreak, because I suffered from, severe anxiety, like through my 20s. When I made that transition from the hospitality industry into the fashion, I went down a labyrinth maze of, I don't know what's going to happen, but I had a vision and I stuck to it, and it was not easy. But like, you know, if we just were taught from a young age, we have something in us that we can do anything from, that kid kind of mentality. You're an adult, and like you still like to do something, when you're 40 or 50 years old. But why didn't you pursue it as a job? If
Right.
if I was still to this day in the hospitality industry and I still loved fashion, my mentality, the way that I'm, programmed from a young age, is like, no, this is what you do. Like, this is what you studied. This is what you graduated. This is what you should do. Like, we have, so much that we can do. Like, as like, our species, and like, that we shouldn't be boxed in. We shouldn't be, like, just compressed or changed to one thing. Like, we're like, imagine at 15, 16 years old, okay, choose what you want to do for the rest of your life. You don't know yourself at 15 or 16. You have not seen the world. You have not seen life. You've seen nothing. Like, how do you know what your gift is? Like, some people are lucky. Like, some kids are like, some young people, like, at that age, they know exactly what they want. But for a lot of people, they don't know what they want to do.
Well, listening to you talk about all of that, about all these different career paths and gifts that we may or may not have, to be a little more I guess, for lack of a better word, to excel at a particular area. I do think, at least in this country, in the US, so you gave me a flashback to being in like middle school and high school where they would have, I don't know, wood shop, they would have home economics, they would have, music class, art, etc., etc. And I it kind of made me realize that okay, an attempt is made to show people like okay, I don't have a gift in math, but I'm really good with languages or wow, I'm really good with my hands. I could, be a woodworker or something. So I think an attempt, whether they know it, our education system knows it or not, I think
Mhm.
an attempt is made for to at least somewhat put that into our minds. But I think conversations like this, like just teachers stepping up and saying, "Hey, you know, so and so, you're really good. Like these projects you're doing in our woodworking class are really good. You should think about learning more about woodworking and craftsmanship." And I mean, maybe it was just because I wasn't really that good at woodworking. I don't know. But no, I don't ever remember teachers where I'm from ever having
Never had
conversations
it.
like that.
Yeah.
Because I was always like really good with languages and spelling. And I actually did one paper in my English class on Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They played in the NBA back in the 80s. And I will admit I did watch a lot of like, home videos they had on their careers and stuff. But I wrote a paper on them, and the feedback I got was, "Well, it sounds like you plagiarized this." And I had to talk to the teacher and say, "No, no, no, this came like from my head. Like I wrote this." So instead of this teacher, they had an opportunity to be like, hey, have you ever thought about majoring in literature, English, or whatever? And to me, just based on what you just said, that could have been an opportunity for somebody to make that kind of impact. So maybe it's not necessarily the system that's broken in our educational systems. Maybe it's the actual, like, okay, the training of how we teach and how we, you know, I guess, for lack of a better word, mentor younger minds to just think about these things and to get excited about wow, this teacher thinks the world of how I write and they think I have like real potential. And for me, that would have made a huge difference. Instead, I was like, well, what a bitch. And basically was just like, I know I'm a good writer. And that was the end of it. But the whole idea of writing was always in my mind. I knew I was good, but maybe I needed a little bit of an extra push. And I think that's something that maybe we're not getting.
There should be one class dedicated to find like literally like just like literally just sitting in silence and just closing your eyes and envisioning what you want to do for the rest of your life, like just one class dedicated to your passions and like just teaching kids about like the stresses of like life, because like we don't talk about mental health in schools. Okay, so at all. It's zero. It's not there. We're not. I didn't know what depression was or anxiety or schizophrenia until I was like, I don't know, in my early 20s nearly. I was like, I didn't know everyone has this. Every single living, breathing human being has mental health. Mental health is what like anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, like bipolar. There's so much aspects to it. We're not taught about that, like the stresses in like in life. We're not taught about like how to find your your passion, your gifts and everything. Like if we were just taught about like just one class a week to figure out, okay guys, just to teach us about like the mental health, stress, anxiety, depression, like just that class, and about like, just finding like what you're good at. Like close your eyes. What do you envision yourself being? And like then, we have our answers. How are you going to do it? And like
I
just that simple, just it's very simple, but we're not taught this.
I totally agree. I really think, to your point, that there should be some kind of class for students to take part in, whether it's, I don't know, maybe middle school, like sixth, seventh, eighth grade. That age group is too young, but definitely by the time you get to high school, where things become a little more real, just, hey, you're getting closer to the real world, and you should learn about the real stressors of life and what you could face not only in the real world, but just as a person. Have you ever thought about yourself and how you handle situations and your emotions? And I think that would have made a big difference for me,
Huge.
because I know as I've gotten older, I've learned a lot about myself. And I don't know if I can sit here and say I have anxiety or depression or anything like that. I've never been diagnosed really with anything like that. But I do know that when the going gets tough, I need to step back. I need time to recharge my mind and to, you know, just refresh the batteries before I get back out there. And I feel like we need to learn more things like that about ourselves, and just to be able to cope better with life, because life can be great, but life can also be very hard. And I don't think we take enough time as we grow as people to learn about ourselves and what triggers us and how we can correct that or minimize it or whatever the case is. So I think these are all such fantastic points we're making.
No, absolutely. That should be compulsory in definitely in secondary school and high school, is just a class about like, just dealing with like, the stresses of life, because life, like, is difficult. It's not easy. It is difficult, period. Like no one has it easy. There's always, some conflict that you have with yourself or with someone. And, we just need like a class that like, this is like what mental health is. And don't, you're not insane, you're not crazy. Every single living, breathing human being has it. Our brains are so complex. There's so much information and billions of cells in our brains. And, we're intaking in so much information and energy and emotions. And, we have mortgages, we have, like we have jobs, we have, there's so much going on in one day. And like sometimes you kind of step back, it's like, oh, is this normal? Like, should I be feeling this way? Yes, it is completely normal. Like you should be feeling that type of way. It's like, it's your emotions. Like every single human being has it, but we never speak about it. No one ever speaks about mental health. It's like this kind of taboo, and it shouldn't be a taboo. It should be normal. And it's not healthy for us, like for human beings, to kind of compress all of these emotions and things. And like it's unhealthy. And I think one of the best concepts that I take from life is from the Japanese. There's this island off of Japan, and they have the longest living human beings in the world living in it. So they live to 127 years averaging, and they follow this chart. It's called Ikigai, which is the IKIGI. And basically, it's about their most important task that they have in their life is finding their passion. And once they find their passion, they're in flow. There's a flow to life. Like they're in tranquil, like it's like a flow. and they have balance between the community, social, and being at home and being in the workplace. Like it's a complete balance. And I don't know about you, Mark, but me, I'm always off balance. I work more than I am at home, and it's really unhealthy. And sometimes, it does kind of take its toll. And we should all be following their concept of like, finding your passion in life and having a complete and healthy balance with that.
I try to create as much balance as I can. I
Yeah,
mean, I wake up super early. I have a long
me too.
commute,
Yeah.
and I'm doing this podcast. I'm married. I mean, I've got a pretty full plate of things and responsibility. And when all is said and done, I know one piece of advice that has been given to me through, I had like a 9 week therapy coaching session that I did at the end of 2020 into 2021. And one of the most valuable pieces of advice was that you should make time every day for just to do something for you, whether it's, for me, I guess it would be playing a video game or whatever. I mean, doing something like this podcast is definitely for me, but I think it's also, there's a lot of other layers to it. I'm hoping that it's for other people too, especially my guests. And I think every day you need to take that time just to do something that is solely you and has nothing to do with anybody else. And I've tried to practice that, and that is how I have tried to find balance in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was like just joining the Gaelic football here in London. Like I would literally wake up. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. Now I'm 6 a.m. But once I get up at 6 a.m., it's like in my brain, it's like work. It's like just work. And from 6 a.m. to like literally 10 p.m. until I sleep, I'm working because I'm like, I have a full time job plus my business on the side. So before I go to my full time job, I'm working. When I leave my full time job, I'm working. And joining like the football club just helped me kind of like just clear my head in the evenings and like just gave me an outlook. And like just that 1 hour in the football pitch, I am not thinking about work or anything. And I think everyone needs a hobby or an interest or something to kind of like just take their mind away from work or like just stress, to de-stress.
Well, speaking, I know we don't have like all the time in the world. I don't want to run out of time and not talk a little bit about the thing you've worked so hard to build,
Yeah.
which is your fashion line.
Yeah.
I have read your, I guess, your bio, your about section, and from what you say, your line is really rooted in your Irish roots. And
Absolutely.
was wondering if you could just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so actually it was actually quite funny. So when I left, when I left, my home at 18 years old, I to be honest, I kind of think I did lose a little bit a sense of who I am. And for the last like say 10 years, it's just I've been kind of just figuring out like myself and like, me as a person. And the one thing that really like stands to me to this day is being how proud I am for where I come from and having roots. Like, it doesn't matter if you're from Spain and you living in London, or from Italy you're living in London, or from Greece you're living in London. Everyone is like, everyone has roots of like where they come from. And like I work with a Greek lady, and she's always talking about Greece and like her culture and the climate, and every chance she has, she's always going home. And like I always like ask her, like what's home to you? And she just says like she just like it's like recharging the batteries and being with family, and it's just memories and everything. And through the years, I appreciated coming home more and finding my feet and my roots and like just where I came from and being really proud of that. And I think it's so important that each of us know where we've come from, because if we don't know where we come from, how do we know where we're going? And for me, for like the last like few years, it's been really like it was quite hard for me. I kept going through walls and like just I didn't know so much about myself. And like just the last 10 years, it was just accumulation of people asking me, oh, where I come from, Ireland. Oh, we love Ireland. I'm like, oh, really? And just knowing where you come from and being proud of it, and like it just helps in like sense of who you are, your heritage, your DNA, your blood, and like your characteristics, and it just that really transitions into my brand. It's so important to know where you come from. It's like the foundation of who you are.
So you also talk a lot about sustainability. Where does
Yes.
that come into play for you?
Oh my God, I think it's watching documentaries upon documentaries and being absolutely terrified. Like I'm terrified. I'm not going to lie. It's really scary. It's something that you just can't ignore. You're seeing like the effects of like, deforestation, palm oil in the Amazon, and like just acres upon thousands of acres being, like of trees being chopped down to make room for palm oil industry. You're seeing the effects of like melting ice, how like the hurricanes, there's more hurricanes, earthquakes, like the world is just like bit by bit, like it's getting angry. Like Mother Nature is so angry and she's fighting back, and she's giving us more tornadoes, more like like just crazy weather, and towns are being flooded more and more and more, and the sea levels rising, and it's really scary. And David Attenborough scared the crap out of me. It's, our planet, watching that, and it's terrifying. I'm scared. Like you just don't know. And I think there's like a huge clock in Times Square that they're like ticking down. This is how much time we have left until we have airplay or like damages that we can't go back on to fix. It's scary. And it's in your face every day on social media. You're scrolling through your Instagram and there's like pictures of like birds covered in oil spills in the sea. It's in your face every single day, and you just don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and I do want to note that there is a new David Attenborough special on, I think, on Netflix that I've really been wanting to watch. Have you watched it yet?
I watched everything that he's done, and I think he's a very rare human being, and he's a light among, you know, like among this darkness. And we should all just listen to what he has to say. It's like he's speaking facts, and it is scary, obviously. Like I think people are just scared to listen to what he has to say because it's not a comfortable conversation, it's not a pleasant conversation, and it's scary. He's given us facts like we have this much time to fix this and this and this and this, and people don't want to hear it because it's scary. Like you don't know what's going to happen in 10 years time or 20 years time or 30 years time. And there's not been much done by the politicians either about each country. And I don't know, it's just how can I do my part in this world? It's just being sustainable. No plastic, there's no chemicals. Everything's organic. Like I use recycled packaging for my packaging. It's like everything's recycled. And like what can I do for me, like for my bit in this world? And that's all I can do is just have a sustainable brand.
Well, speaking of your brand and
Yeah.
yourself, you have traveled this amazing journey to where you're to the point where you have your own brand, you're working for yourself. What's next for you, especially as I think we're turning the corner on the pandemic.
Yeah.
I debate that in my mind every day, but maybe
Yeah.
putting that aside, what's next for you as far as
Yeah.
building up your brand?
I think it's just about being consistent. I want to have consistency with um like new images, just keep it fresh, working with like different photographers, networking, like with like, using different models, like having like a wide range of demographic in my brand. Like my brand, it needs to be inclusive. I would need to have 40 shades of skin color on my brand, and it's just being open and room for growth. And I want to meet as many photographers, stylists, other fashion designers, and having conversations with them. And in like 5 6 years time, I want it to be a big brand, like a house name, and I want more looks. I want to like I have about 2,500 sketches done of like what I want to do, and it's just building it up bit by bit, like taking my time and being patient and consistent. But I would love to be a household name in 5 years' time. Like that's my dream. But for me now, it's just about networking and working and being consistent, being patient, and meeting people like yourself and talking about it, and just doing as much as I can and getting as much press as I can, and magazines and interviews, doing Q&As, and meeting different like artists in the industry, and being optimistic and
Well,
going.
I I have no doubt that with the passion and work ethic that you have, that you will find exactly what you're looking for and get where you want to go. I mean, your story is truly inspiring, and this is why I do what I do, because it really is, it gets me pumped up. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be super pumped up. I've done 2 episodes of this show today, and I may
It's
not
like
sleep tonight
adrenaline.
just based on how much all of you inspire and motivate me. And I guess to wrap things up here, why don't you talk a little bit about how people can follow you, how they can work with you, and how they can learn more about you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's HannahMariaShanahan.com. So it's HANNAH, Mariah, MARIA, Shanahan, SHANAHAN.com. On my website, you can read about like myself and the brand. There's a shop there, and it has all my social links. So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram with the same name, Hannah Maria Shanahan, Facebook, and Pinterest and Twitter.
All right, fantastic. Well, Hannah, this was an amazing conversation. I loved getting into just some of the educational stuff that we got into. That was
Yeah.
an unexpected treat of this conversation. And your journey is just really interesting and really inspiring. I wish we had another hour to talk, but and
No worries.
just not hold up everybody's life and do a 3 hour episode.
Oh God, I don't think anyone would appreciate that. Yeah.
We're gonna drop the mic on
Yeah.
this episode here. Hannah, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on Mark My Words. It was
No
really
worries.
amazing.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Anytime, and I look forward to seeing how your business grows. I think, again, with the fire and passion and motivation that you have, sky's the limit. So I
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best. So
Thank you. Same to you. I wish you all the best too, Mark.
I appreciate that. I need all the well wishes that I can get, much like all the rest of us, I
Everyone. Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Definitely.
this was HannahMaria Shanahan. She has her own fashion line, and she is great. And I am Mark Schmidt. This is Mark My Words, and I'll be back soon with a new episode. Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.